Underage children shouldn't be putting anything in their lungs. Pot smoke or cigarette smoke or any other kind of smoke, if they can help it, it's not good.
Willie Nelson has always been larger than life. A red-headed troubadour whose voice, songs, and outlaw image rewrote the rules of country music. But now, at 92, headlines about Willie are once again dominating the news, and the stories are both inspiring and heartbreaking. For decades, he's been the symbol of resilience, living through IRS battles, arrests, tragedies, and health scares. Yet today, whispers about his failing lungs, his unpredictable finances, and even shocking family confessions are shaking fans to the core. What's really happening behind the headlines? Is this the closing chapter of a legend's story? Or just another wild turn in a life that refuses to follow the script? Stay with us, because the latest about Willie Nelson is breaking the headlines, and the truth will leave you stunned. For decades, Willie Nelson has been known as the unstoppable outlaw of country music. But behind the twinkle in his eye and the ever-present guitar, the truth is catching up to him. Willie has battled chronic breathing issues for years, a struggle that has forced him to cancel tours, cut sets short, and even admit to fans that his body no longer works the way it once did. At 92, every headline about his health sends waves of fear across the country music world. Fans know the day will eventually come when he won't be able to return to the stage, but no one wants to imagine it. In recent years, Willie has quietly admitted to ongoing lung problems, the result of a lifetime of smoking, touring, and pushing himself past the limits. In 2019, he shocked fans by canceling a series of shows, revealing that his doctors warned him to take it slow. But those who know Willie best say he's never been good at slowing down. Even when his voice cracks or his breathing falters, he insists on singing. Bandmates have spoken about their quiet concerns, saying that they keep a close eye on him during performances, ready to step in if he needs help. His family, too, has been worried. Close friends report that his children and longtime wife have pleaded with him to ease back, to rest, to spend his final years away from the road. But Willie refuses. To him, performing isn't just a job, it's life itself. That defiance, while inspiring, also makes every headline about his health that much more painful. Fans know he's putting his body on the line, and many fear he's pushing too far. Still,
I already had maybe 15 or so of my own.
Wow.
And then I bought 50 of these horses. So now I got a few horses.
Save them.
Willie has always lived on his own terms. He's not afraid of death. He's admitted more than once. What he fears is stopping too soon. And so, the latest reports about his health, headlines filled with words like fragile, weakened, and decline, have the world bracing for what may come next. Willie Nelson isn't just a man, he's an era. And watching that era fade is breaking hearts everywhere. Money and Willie Nelson have always had a complicated relationship. To his fans, he's the carefree outlaw who never chased fortune the way other stars did. But behind the curtain, the headlines about Willie's finances have often been as dramatic as his music. The most infamous story dates back to 1990, when the IRS seized nearly everything he owned. Years of unpaid taxes, tangled business deals, and poor financial advice left him staring at a $32 million tax debt. They took his ranches, recording masters, and even personal possessions. Headlines at the time declared Willie finished, but he fought back in the only way he knew how, through music. He released the IRS tapes, Who Will Buy My Memories, an album where fans could buy songs directly to help him pay the debt. It worked. Slowly, piece by piece, he rebuilt his fortune. But today, new headlines are raising questions again. At 92, how much of Willie's empire is really secure? Rumors about estate planning, family inheritance battles, and the massive upkeep of his properties have sparked a new wave of speculation. With dozens of children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, dividing his legacy is no simple matter. Some insiders claim disagreements have already begun, especially around his sprawling ranch in Texas and the rights to his catalog. Add in his ventures, like his cannabis brand, Willie's Reserve, and the picture becomes even more complicated. Is it a brilliant empire that will outlive him, or another financial mess waiting to collapse? Critics have long accused Willie of being too trusting. Friends say he always put music, people, and causes before money. That generosity has left him vulnerable more than once. Behind the glowing headlines about his philanthropy are whispers of opportunists who took advantage of him, draining resources he'll never get back. And yet, despite it all, Willie never seemed bitter. He often joked that money never mattered much, as long as he had a guitar and a song. Still, for fans reading today's headlines, the concern is real. When the day comes, will Willie's family inherit stability, or another legal nightmare? The irony isn't lost on anyone. A man who gave the world some of the greatest songs ever written may leave behind a financial puzzle no one knows how to solve. And as the headlines continue to swirl, one truth remains. Willie Nelson's money story has always been bigger than dollars and cents. It's about freedom, choices, and living without regret, even when the cost is steep. For all his fame and glory, Willie Nelson's greatest source of pride, and also his deepest struggle, has always been his family. With 8 children from multiple relationships and grandchildren scattered across generations, the Nelson family tree is as sprawling and complex as Willie's own life. But recent headlines have pulled back the curtain on just how fragile those bonds can be. In interviews, some of his children have shared emotional memories of what it was like growing up with a father who was both larger than life and yet often absent. Willie was always on the road, chasing music, chasing freedom, chasing his own restless spirit. That left gaps, and those gaps sometimes turned into wounds. Several of his children have publicly spoken about the pressure of being compared to their father, of being asked why they weren't as famous, why they couldn't live up to the Nelson name. For others, the pain comes from having to watch their father's health decline while knowing they can't convince him to rest. Willie's determination to perform has put strain on those closest to him, who live with the constant fear that every concert could be his last. Then there are the whispers of tension over his legacy. With a fortune built on music royalties, land, and business ventures, dividing his empire has been a source of unease. Sources close to the family claim some children have already voiced concerns about fairness, while others insist that Willie's decisions about inheritance reflect the relationships he valued most. These stories, when leaked to the media, create an image of a family both united by love and divided by circumstances. It doesn't help that Willie has always been a man who followed his heart, marrying multiple times, leaving behind a trail of broken relationships, but also children who still love him fiercely. The most heartbreaking headlines in recent years came from the tragic death of his son Billy in 1991, a loss that Willie admitted he would never recover from. Even today, as he speaks about family, there is always a shadow in his voice, a reminder of the pain he carries. The truth is that family has always been both a blessing and a burden for Willie Nelson, and the latest stories show that at 92, those struggles have not disappeared. They've only grown more complicated. When Willie Nelson takes the stage, even at 92, it is more than just a concert. It is a sermon, a farewell, and a reminder that music has always been his greatest form of confession. For years, fans have noticed that his recent performances carry a weight they had never heard before. His once strong and playful voice now trembles with age, yet that fragility only deepens the emotion in his delivery. Songs like Always on My Mind and Funny How Time Slips Away now sound less like old hits and more like final messages. Listeners describe his shows as bittersweet, as though each lyric is both a celebration and a goodbye. In interviews, Willie himself has hinted at this shift. He admits that as he grows older, the meaning of his songs changes. Lines he once sang casually now carry personal truth about regret, love lost, and the shortness of life. His fans believe he is speaking directly to them, leaving behind a legacy not just in recorded albums, but in the raw honesty of his live performances. Even the choice of his set lists has sparked conversation. Where he once leaned heavily on upbeat outlaw anthems, he now blends them with reflective ballads about aging and mortality. Observers see this as no accident. It is as if Willie is carefully curating his own farewell, shaping how the world will remember him. And then there are his new releases, which have only fueled speculation. His recent songs are filled with references to heaven, redemption, and the fleeting nature of time. Critics have pointed out that Willie seems to be using his music to prepare his audience for the inevitable, delivering gentle reminders that while he may leave the stage, his voice will live forever. This emotional weight has not gone unnoticed. At his shows, audiences often cry openly, knowing they may be witnessing his last tour, his last bow, or even his last note. These concerts are not just events. They are living history, moments that fans will carry with them long after he is gone. And every headline about his latest performance seems to echo the same haunting question: is Willie Nelson saying goodbye through his music? Yet, true to his spirit, Willie refuses to confirm or deny anything. He shrugs off questions about retirement with a smile, insisting he'll keep singing until he can't. And so, each performance becomes a gamble. Will it be the last? Or will he surprise everyone and keep going, defying the odds yet again? What cannot be denied is this: Willie's music has become his final love letter to the world, one song at a time, and it speaks louder than any press release, interview, or headline ever could. For a man who has always marched to the beat of his own guitar, it should come as no surprise that Willie Nelson still manages to stir up controversy, even in his 90s. The latest headlines haven't just been about his health or his family. They've also been about his fiery opinions and business ventures that have divided fans. Willie has never been shy about politics, but in recent years his statements have grabbed national attention. Whether it's supporting causes that align with his liberal beliefs or speaking out against policies he feels hurt ordinary Americans, his words have often made headlines that spark both admiration and outrage. Some country fans, who once adored him for his outlaw spirit, now accuse him of alienating them with political stances they don't share. Others, however, praise him as a voice of courage, a man unafraid to speak truth, even when it costs him. Beyond politics, Willie's cannabis empire has been a lightning rod. Long before legalization became mainstream, he was the face of marijuana culture in country music. Now, with his brand Willie's Reserve making millions, critics argue that he has commercialized what was once a countercultural stance. Detractors claim he is cashing in, while supporters point out that Willie has always been honest about his lifestyle and is simply turning decades of passion into a business that benefits farmers and fans alike. Yet it's not just politics and pot that stir up headlines. Recently, whispers about canceled shows, missed appearances, and abrupt decisions have fueled speculation that he may not always be as in control as he appears. A few insiders claim his team shields him from difficult questions, carefully crafting what fans and the press see. This has led some to question whether the Willie they cheer for on stage is truly making all the calls, or if others are pulling the strings. The media, of course, seizes on these doubts, turning small rumors into major controversies. But through it all, Willie rarely defends himself. His response is almost always the same. He keeps singing. And maybe that is the point. For Willie Nelson, controversy is nothing new. From his outlaw years when Nashville turned its back on him, to the tax scandals of the 90s, to his current polarizing stances, he has always lived in the middle of storms of his own making. The latest headlines are just another chapter in that pattern. A reminder that Willie doesn't follow the crowd, and he never will. Love him or hate him, his refusal to conform is exactly what made him a legend in the first place. The outlaw image is what made Willie Nelson a legend. But it is also what continues to haunt him to this day. In the 1970s, when Nashville executives dismissed his scruffy look, unconventional voice, and refusal to follow the rules, Willie broke away and helped create the outlaw country movement alongside Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, and Johnny Cash. They weren't just musicians. They were rebels rewriting what country music could sound like and what it could stand for. Songs like Whiskey River and Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain cemented his place in history, while his braids, bandanas, and laid-back swagger became symbols of freedom. Yet the very things that made him a hero also led to years of scandal. His heavy marijuana use earned him countless arrests and legal troubles. His financial choices and refusal to bow to authority caused him to clash with the government, most famously with the IRS. And while fans admired his rebellion, critics painted him as reckless and irresponsible. These shadows linger even now, as every new headline about his health or finances inevitably references the wild outlaw past that shaped him. At 92, Willie may no longer be outrunning the law, but his name is still linked with those early controversies. What few realize is how much pain that lifestyle carried with it. Behind the easy smile and casual jokes, Willie endured broken marriages, estranged relationships, and long nights on the road filled with loneliness. The headlines that glorify his outlaw years often gloss over the cost, the toll it took on his body, his family, and even his mental health. Yet even in those struggles, Willie carved out a myth that fans still cling to. He became the embodiment of the American spirit, flawed, rebellious, yet endlessly resilient. The haunting part is that, as Willie edges closer to the end of his life, journalists and fans alike cannot separate the man from the myth. Every headline today, whether about his fragile health, his estate, or his music, seems to circle back to the image of the outlaw who never apologized for living life his way. And perhaps that is both his greatest gift and his greatest burden. Because when history remembers Willie Nelson, it won't just remember the hits or the controversies. It will remember the man who turned rebellion into art and who carried the outlaw banner until the very end. When news breaks about Willie Nelson, the world pays attention. Few artists in history command the kind of emotional response he does, and the latest headlines have once again unleashed a tidal wave of reaction from fans across the globe. The moment whispers of his declining health, family tensions, or financial controversies hit the press, social media platforms erupt. Hashtags like "Say Pray for Willie" and "We Love Willie" trend within hours, filled with messages from fans who have followed him for decades, as well as younger listeners discovering his music for the first time. People post videos of themselves crying as they play "On the Road Again" or "Always on My Mind," sharing how his music helped them through heartbreak, loss, or some of the hardest moments of their lives. Tribute concerts spring up overnight, with local musicians gathering in small bars and large venues to honor him, filling the air with songs that have defined American culture for generations. Radio stations run marathon sessions of his music, reminding listeners of just how wide his influence stretches. But fan reactions are not only about grief or fear, they are also about celebration. Many express gratitude that Willie has lived such a long, vibrant life, pointing out that few musicians make it to 92 still performing, still writing, still speaking their truth. They see him as a miracle, a man who defied time itself. Still, beneath the pride and joy, there is deep concern. Fans flood online forums and comment sections with questions like, "Is this the last tour? Will he make another record? How much time does he really have left?" Some claim that watching him on stage in recent years feels like saying goodbye in slow motion. They talk about his fragile frame, his thinning voice, and how each show feels like it could be the final bow. Others fiercely reject that notion, insisting that Willie will never stop until his last breath, and that worrying only steals away from celebrating the time that's left. The divide in fan reactions is striking. On one side are those who prepare for the inevitable end. On the other are those who cling to hope that Willie will once again defy the odds as he has so many times before. And then there are the stories, personal confessions from fans who share how Willie Nelson changed their lives. Veterans write about how his songs kept them sane during war. Farmers recall how his Farm Aid concerts gave them hope when they were losing everything. Couples describe dancing to his music at their weddings, while others remember playing his records as comfort when loved ones passed away. For millions, Willie isn't just a singer. He is woven into the most intimate memories of their lives. That is why every new headline cuts so deeply. Because it isn't just about Willie. It's about what he represents. A living connection to a time when music was raw, real, and filled with soul. A symbol of rebellion, resilience, and authenticity. Fans know they will never see another like him, and so their reactions are filled with both mourning and gratitude. They are already preparing tributes, already writing posts, already sharing playlists that will keep his voice alive long after he is gone. And yet, in the middle of all this reaction, Willie himself remains calm, smiling, strumming his guitar, refusing to let fear dictate his final chapter. To his fans, that is perhaps the most emotional part of all, that even as they prepare to say goodbye, he is still teaching them how to live. As the headlines continue to spread, one truth is impossible to ignore. Willie Nelson is not just a man, he is an era. And the story of his life is far bigger than the controversies, the family tensions, or even the health struggles that now dominate the news. To understand Willie Nelson, you have to understand the impossible balance he has lived with for nearly a century. Balancing outlaw rebellion with tender vulnerability. Balancing wild freedom with deep responsibility. Balancing a larger-than-life public persona with the quiet, private man who simply loved his guitar and the open road. The final word on Willie Nelson cannot be written by reporters or critics because his story has always belonged to the people. It belongs to the farmer in Iowa who found hope in his Farm Aid concerts when foreclosure threatened to take everything. It belongs to the soldier overseas who clung to his songs as a reminder of home. It belongs to the millions of fans who grew up with his voice as the soundtrack of their weddings, heartbreaks, and funerals. Willie's legacy is not just music, it is survival. Time and again, he faced challenges that would have ended most men. The collapse of marriages, the betrayal of friends, the crushing weight of the IRS scandal, the arrests, the broken lungs that made singing a battle. And yet, every time he came back, smiling. Braids swinging, guitar in hand, ready to remind the world that no obstacle could silence him. That resilience is what fans are celebrating now, even as they brace for the inevitable. The final word must also include the way Willie lived his truth. He never pretended to be perfect, never polished his image to fit expectations. He smoked weed, got arrested, went bankrupt, and loved recklessly. And he did it all without apology. For that reason, people trusted him in a way they never trusted most celebrities. His flaws made him real. His honesty made him beloved. And now, as he nears the twilight of his journey, that honesty is what makes his story so painful and so inspiring at the same time. Every headline that suggests Willie Nelson is fading feels like a personal loss to millions. But perhaps that is the final lesson he is leaving behind. That mortality comes for us all, and the measure of a life is not in how long it lasts, but in what it leaves behind. And what Willie Nelson leaves behind is immeasurable. He leaves behind a catalog of songs that will outlive him by centuries. He leaves behind a family, however complicated, who will forever carry his blood and his name. He leaves behind generations of fans who will tell their children and grandchildren about the time they saw Willie on stage, about how he made them feel something no other singer ever could. He leaves behind the outlaw country movement, the braids, the bandanas, the twang of trigger, his iconic guitar, scarred and battered, but still alive, just like him. And maybe most importantly, he leaves behind a way of life, a belief that freedom matters more than perfection, that truth matters more than image, and that music can heal more than words ever could. The final word on Willie Nelson, then, is not one of sadness, though sadness is unavoidable. It is one of gratitude. Gratitude for a man who gave everything he had to the world, who sang until his lungs could barely hold air, who smiled through the storms, who carried the weight of his mistakes with humor and grace, who never stopped fighting for what he believed in. Willie Nelson's final chapter may be approaching, but the book he wrote through his music, his struggles, and his triumphs will never close. For as long as people gather around campfires, dance in kitchens, or drive down lonely highways, his voice will be there, on the road again, always on our minds, forever a part of the American story.